Our next session is a panel session, and the title is Preservation Decision Making in Bridge Management Systems. And we have 4 panel members, so can the panel members come up? We got Zac Boyle with Mayview Systems, and you may know that they are the contractor that programs AASHTOWare Bridge Management, or BRM. We have Mike Hill with the Arkansas DOT, and we have Andrew DeVault with Florida DOT, and we have Ishan Farish Tanajad has offered to substitute for him. So I think what we have here is 2 of our panel members have short presentations, and then after that, I think we'll go to some discussion, and we can ask questions to all the panel members. So I think Zac, if you're here, could you go first?
As Dave mentioned, my name is Zac Boyle. I'm from Mayview Systems, but that means that I'm one of the developers creating AASHTOWare BrM. I also have 10 years of experience at Utah DOT before switching over to working on the BrM system directly, so I've sat in many of these meetings. That hopefully means that I speak your language and have experienced what you have too. And then in terms of going around and helping states set this up at this point, I've worked with 25 states directly on their TAMP and modeling, so hopefully that also means I can answer for some of the states that aren't present. For those of you who don't know about AASHTOWare, basically what this is all of the states working together to create software at cost for everybody's needs. That's many of the states here. As you can see, that's about 42 states and a few other agencies across the country that are all working together. I encourage everyone who's using BrM to get the latest version because Texas and Michigan added some great things last year. Georgia's adding some great things this year. Keep up with the latest ones because there's some really cool things that keep coming. AASHTOWare has quite a long history of helping with picking projects. If you look at the states that have been using BrM, or before BrM it was called Pontus, if you look at the states that have been using it for 20 years and we pull those, it's like 15 states. If we pull those 15 states out of the national record, you can actually see from their condition that they have more bridges still in good condition and less poor bridges than the system nationally. More than anything else, there's proof in practice that it works. Basically what we're trying to get to with this system, with any bridge management system, probably what everyone's going to talk about up here today, is trying to arrive at this data-driven process for project selection. It's not about the bridges that your boss drives over on the way to work. Those are the ones we're going to work on because he has the authority and he picks the projects. It's not about the bridges closest to the state legislature must be in good condition because it's the legislature, or must be in poor condition because we need to convince them we need money, right? It's about having a data-driven process. And really the foundation of that, of course, as Aaron and Jeff just talked about, is our inspection data. Basically what these systems are about is setting up your models so that you can feed the inspection data in and get out on the other side project recommendations or projections of condition. Speaking of BrM specifically, we use it's criticality weighted cost-benefit scores when it comes to selecting projects. The cost-benefit side of things naturally is because these are the things we're looking to help our system. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the cost-benefit piece in a minute. And then the criticality side of things is because some bridges are more important than others. That does weigh into our decision-making process. I mentioned the political aspects, but no joke, Rhode Island left the bridge in front of the state legislature in poor condition for 10 years to convince the legislature to increase their funding. It happens, right? Political things happen. And it worked. Yeah, exactly. It did work. We're trying to, some bridges are more critical than others. And so that's the process that we use. Of course, there's other things that go into those limitations, such as, what's the condition of our bridges right now? How much money is set aside perhaps for rehabilitation versus preservation, if you're one of those states that divides out your funding before feeding it in. In terms of that cost-benefit side of things, the benefit we define in BrM in terms of how much does your utility score change. Now, utility score could be like the old sufficiency rating if you're still using it. I know there's a few states out there that are. You could use health index for that. It could be, essentially, it's designed that each state can put in the criteria that matters to them. but the ones that we very highly recommend for preservation purposes, and hopefully this will then help with our discussions as questions come in later, is that we recommend that you include condition and life cycle as part of the utility, because you're trying to make the decision between should we do replacement, rehabilitation projects or preservation projects. And preservation may not change the condition in some cases. If you're starting to see a little bit of section loss, paint isn't going to fix that, not by itself. Looking at how much does something change the condition is one type of benefit. How much do things change the overall life cycle cost is another part of that benefit. The other thing that BRM includes is the ability for you to define the types of actions that you will do in your agency. I know some states find this painful to set up. These are the types of actions that we do. This is how much we expect to pay for that. There's nothing more useless than a model which recommends work you will never consider. In my experience with UDOT, we had a model that recommended half of the money it was recommending was for healer sealers. And we didn't do healer sealers at the time. And so the model was completely useless because both that isn't something we would do, and we don't know what it would have spent the money on if it wasn't spending it on healer sealers. And so I really recommend going through the effort of setting up the actions that your agency is actually going to use, because then the models are useful to you in the output. And like I've said, I've helped, at this point, 25 states do that setup. In fact, some of the people in this room, I've helped you, or we have meetings in the next 2 weeks. I know there's a few states here that we're going to be talking about some of that in the next 2 weeks. But really, you want to set up the things that the way your agency selects projects. And then after that, it's just a matter of giving it a budget and running some optimizations. So I want to show this slide really quickly. This fun, we call it a rainbow chart, but essentially these are scenarios, a whole bunch of different funding scenarios. In this case, this is Rhode Island before the pandemic started, so before the crash and panic of budgets. You'll notice that they had convinced the state legislature to do a surge of funding for the first 5 years, instead of giving them a constant rate over the next 20. And they were trying to evaluate how does that change our projections long term. As you can see here, sure enough, that would be a whole lot better than them just getting in this case, $100 million a year. But that surge only helped out for so long, and then you'd see that the deterioration does indeed start to catch up with them again 20 years later. Each of these lines has a list of projects behind it to accomplish that. And while I wouldn't recommend that you take that list of projects straight to production, I mean, engineering judgment should still apply, it at least shows that there's a path possible to achieve these projections. So when the legislature surprises you and gives you more money than you were expecting, there's a way to come up with how we should spend that. If they take more of your funding away, again, what are we doing to achieve our performance measures? Is there a path forward for that? We can get there. This is a very quick overview, so I won't go into too much detail. I will say that there is the 400-page technical manual if you want to read all of the formulas behind it, or you can come talk to me at dinner because I'm a nerd and I love to talk about this stuff all day, every day. There's my contact information. You can come get me I've got a business card I could give you too. Like I said, let's talk about this all at dinner as well. But hopefully that gives you at least a starting point with what BRM is and what it can do.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.